Some of the skills that make people exceptional leaders aren't learned in classrooms, boardrooms, or leadership training programs. They're learned much earlier through adversity, through adaptation, through learning how to read a room, solve problems quickly, navigate uncertainty long before we have language for what we're doing. But there comes a point when the strategies that helped us survive can either become our greatest strengths or the very things that hold us back. Today, we're exploring the connection between adversity, leadership, creativity, intuition, and what it means to build a life that works with who we are instead of against it. Welcome to Deals with Heels. I'm Debra, your host, and this is where we go beyond business, leadership, and sales surface levels and into the real decisions that shape how we grow. Today, I'm joined by Allie Grack. Allie is a marketer, an entrepreneur, and an advocate for embracing the strengths hidden inside what she calls the messy mind. Through her work and personal journey, she has explored the intersection of adversity, creativity, neurodiversity, resilience, and leadership, challenging the idea that our greatest struggles are something to overcome rather than understand. Her perspective invites leaders to rethink how they view intuition, pattern recognition, adaptability, and the experiences that shape who they become. Allie, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. It's so good to be here.
I'm really excited. We were going to be on maybe 6 weeks or so ago. I had Allie scheduled and we lost power in the studio that day. And so I had to reschedule. I'm so glad I was able to get you in so quickly because I was pumped to have this conversation.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you got your air back. It's way too hot right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, and we couldn't do anything. We didn't have any power to even the lights or any of the stuff. So it was after a storm. I'm in Oklahoma and we had some tornadic weather that didn't affect where I am, but it affects the power everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's the way it goes sometimes. Well, let's dig in a little bit. You had an incredibly difficult childhood, and I want to talk about it, but I don't want to dwell in it because we could probably talk about it the whole time we're together. But I wanted to talk about how your childhood has affected your understanding of childhood adversity and changed the way you think about leadership and decision making and success. So tell us a little bit about your childhood because it really played an important part in who you are today.
Yeah. It was, I would say it's probably the most pivotal part of how I developed, right? So I was given up for adoption at birth, adopted into a family that had a lot of things going on. I think we were the last ditch attempt at a failed marriage that was coming apart. And so it created a lot of volatility right off the bat. And that escalated into some pretty big moves. It escalated into foster care. And, the system's broken now, but it was really broken back in the late 70s, early 80s when I kind of took the original dive into it. And, a lot of things just weren't in place. There weren't even options for, families that were in duress, but maybe the kid isn't the core of the problem. Like sending the child away isn't going to fix the problem. And yet that was the solution over and over. And so you have no sense of stability or belonging or safety, really. I mean, you never knew where you were going to end up. You never knew where you were going to sleep. Some nights it was very tumultuous. I don't think that system's gotten much better. And so that's even more disturbing that we're, in the 40 plus years later, still have those concerns for kids coming up through the system.
It's not good. It's really
it is not a good situation. No.
I mean, there have been lots of things coming out from human trafficking and people becoming foster parents and adopting children specifically to traffic them. And frankly, by the way, that is not against the law. right?
Yeah,
It's not against the law to adopt a child in order for the purpose of selling them and trafficking them to another person. And that was crazy for me when I heard that too.
yeah,
But
yeah.
so,
I think it's just a disconnect for me in our priorities sometimes. We focus so much on conception and life before birth, and then all of a sudden, yep, they're here. Well, we don't care. I
right.
think there's a big disconnect there. And
I do too. I think part of it's the label.
right,
I think that it's pro-birth, not
right,
pro-life. It's
exactly,
pro-birth. You want
right,
more bodies. And I think there's some macro motivations on a systemic level
very
that
much.
don't have to do with life in general, that have to do with things like population collapse,
Yeah.
increasing numbers. Those have been big countrywide problems for a lot of other countries for decades. So
Mhm.
hitting it here is affecting it as well. But
Right. And
beyond
you're also
that,
talking about control of, women's bodies
mhm,
and choices and things. So there's a lot going into that. I do get really disturbed when I realize that, my birth mother, who I was born in 1972, had more freedom for reproductive care and rights than my granddaughter will. I find that terrifying. So
well,
I think we've got
hopefully
a lot
not
of
your
work.
granddaughter. I don't know
Yeah.
how old your
I mean,
granddaughter is,
fingers
but
crossed. Let's
right,
hope
my
that,
granddaughter's almost 3. And
yes.
I am hopeful that we will all come together
Yeah,
as a
I agree.
gender.
I hope there's a path forward. I think obviously there's bigger problems, maybe not bigger, but issues that are going to be resolved prior to that, or we won't get to that point. But, having such a perspective, right? I was adopted. I was a teen mom, so I had to make that choice for myself. It gives you a lot of perspective on the importance of those healthcare decisions being personal and things like that. But obviously, once you're out, again, the care and concern that people show for in utero is disappears, and now suddenly holding places are, yeah, that's fine. We should definitely just put you in a teenage runaway shelter, even though you're not a teenager and you didn't run away. We should just leave you there for a week or so. So it was a lot of like disconnect from what was in the best interest versus what was the easiest solution to take care of this and resolve it with this little friction as possible. Well, that's not taking into account the needs of both the parents I had, who were obviously in dysfunction, and also the needs of myself. Like, where would you like me to go? How would you like me to become a productive member of society? And it just spiraled through the years. I ended up in a foster care situation that was actually phenomenal. Not perfect, but it gave me a sense of security. It gave me boundaries and structure and a home. And I knew I was going to get up and go to the same school for, X number of days. And then, as the state likes to do, they see that you're successfully placed and then want to replace you back into your original family. And then they just blow your whole life up again. And then you move around and all of these things.
Ah.
And that's basically what happened. So it just was a onslaught of bad placements, but with the goal always being reunification. So no matter how settled you get, you always know you're going to be unsettled at some point. And I think when I look back at it, horrible way to grow up. Don't wish that on anybody. It certainly, wasn't the nightmarish, like you were talking about, like trafficked and things like that. But it was not a fun place to be, and it gave me a sense of the only person who is going to be there for you is you.
Mm.
And it can result in two things. You either become so fiercely independent that you never let other people in, it completely stunts your ability to have relationships and growth, and you just become angry and, let your life kind of fall apart at the seams, or you become so hyper independent and so focused on your own success and growth and needs. And really that's kind of where I went. It wasn't an easy path, but I definitely saw my own potential, thankfully, when there weren't really people telling me I had any. It was very much like I said, they wanted you to just be in a holding pattern. The goal was that you were not in a crisis, but you also really don't matter. And so one of my favorite examples is that, I was maybe 7th grade, I ended up in a group home in Sioux City run by Catholic
Ooh.
Charities, Sioux City, Iowa, run by Catholic Charities. And the primary caregiver was a nun from China who spoke very little English. And then there were several other peripheral staff that would spend the nights and stuff. But the communication was a problem. And so the first day I got dropped off at my new junior high and went in and had to register myself for school. Like, here's your files, take this in, get it set up. So march in 7th grade, go through the day, figure it out. This is pre-cell phone, pre-anything technology wise. So you're just winging it. And I come out after the school day and I waited and waited and waited and waited. And then the sun was going down. And I was like, I don't know where I live. I don't know where to go from here. I don't have a phone number. I have nobody's name. I couldn't even really honestly remember the name of the place that I was living in. It was, it had been minutes of my life. And so when I think about things like that, when you're faced with a situation like that, I could have sat there all night. I could have waited until somebody figured out a kid was missing and called the police or something. But honestly, I just took it upon myself. I started walking around the block near the school and ran into some people and asked them if they knew where, any girls' homes were in town. And so you learn really quickly that nobody's coming to rescue you. And there is no person on a white horse. There's no easy way out, that you're going to have to just fight through it. And, it's a sad state of affairs, truthfully. Like, I wouldn't wish that on anyone, but it also gave me the resilience that has kept me going and given me that perspective of, you're the only one that gets to decide when you're done, when it's over, when you're winning, when you're in crisis. Like, you have to make that your own journey. So,
Right.
but, in the same breath, a lot of the girls specifically in that facility, or even people I knew growing up that were going through the similar lifestyle, they didn't make it. It was really easy in that space to succumb to drugs and alcohol and addiction of any kind, or to fall into bad relationships and end up, in really bad domestic situations. And
Repeating
I
that
always
same
think of,
pattern, right? I mean,
sorry,
that's why they say that if you're a foster kid, you end up birthing foster kids sometimes
a
because you
lot of
repeat
times
that
those
pattern.
patterns. Yep, absolutely. Because it's what you know, and it's your norm. And
It's what you can trust, right?
right.
It's your study. It's like, well, I know this and I survived it. It's
Yep.
that capacity level. And I've been talking a little bit about, in fact, I did an episode recently talking about compound confidence and how confidence isn't something that you can just choose to have, that it accumulates within us with every experience that we have.
Absolutely.
And that experience can build trust in ourselves that we can handle anything that comes our way, or fear and
Right.
negativity and poor me and all of those things. And you're a very good example of building real capacity to trust yourself to get through it. Because you couldn't trust anybody else, but
No, I mean,
you could have chosen not to trust yourself
right.
and strayed away into all of the things that are bad. So good for you.
Well, thank you. I mean, it was not always pretty. Like I said, I became a teen mom early on, but I think the key for me is knowing there's always a next step, knowing that I can always make a change. And even if I have to unravel a bunch of the mistakes, to get back to a fair level ground, I knew I could do it. And
Right. You built that trust in yourself. That's the
exactly.
real key.
Absolutely. And I think without that, and I always feel a little sad for, people who don't have that. I think without that, it's so easy to be beat down by it. And, not to say I haven't hit lows. I have hit lows, but I always kind of use the analogy of like giving myself a moment, right? Like, maybe I needed to lay on the bathroom floor and just ugly cry, but I knew I was going to get up. I knew I was going to get up And you watch people, marathon and they fall to the ground and they wrap them and everybody rushes, right? Everybody comes over and puts a Mylar blanket on the runner and they support them and they cheer them on for all the good work. Nobody's coming to do that for you emotionally. And
No.
if you don't do it for yourself, like if you don't take that minute and allow yourself to be unhealed or wounded or tired, who else is going to do it? Who else
Right.
is
You
going
gotta
to do it?
and you don't compound confidence and trust by avoiding or right. You have to process it. You
Yeah,
have to process your experiences and add them to the story. Right?
absolutely.
So what
And
part of the
the
story? So
lessons, the
yeah.
lessons. Like, how else do you get the lessons if you're not aware of what happened, how it happened, and how you never want it to happen again? And
Right.
making those little maneuvers, those little changes. And I guess really that is really how we ended up here was just a matter of that build on my self-worth, that build on my trust in myself, and the ability to know that it wasn't going to be a perfect journey. And so when I would run into weird, chaotic parts of my life, like it was a lot easier to say this is a temporary situation than
Right.
I should probably just give up and go, do drugs or,
Sit on the
usually.
cactus. What is
Yes,
that
like
statement? Like
honestly,
life might give you a cactus, but you don't have to sit on it.
you do not. You do not. And the older I get, I think the more I realize how much those moments formed me into who I am. And now it's great. Now it's great because I'm still growing. I still want to learn. I still am super curious. I still want to do better. I still go to therapy. I don't have all the answers, but I authentically believe that I know a lot and I am confident in what I know. And I know women, we all talk about imposter syndrome. I do not have imposter syndrome at all. I've done the work. I have learned the lessons. I have studied my career. I have changed who I am as a person. So what I am is what I am, but I certainly don't feel like I'm trying to fool anyone. So
And I
that's a
think
tough place.
it
It feels
is.
really good to just be like, no, I know what I know and I am an
And I
expert
feel good.
and I feel good about it.
So you talk about the messy mind. And I kind of think sometimes because I'm so creative, right?
Yeah.
My friends will be like, God, I can see the 5,000 things going through her mind. Aren't you glad she isn't talking about it out loud? Right? Because it can be really overwhelming. My creativity, when
100%.
it just starts coming, it's almost like vomiting.
Oh, it feels
It's
that way
coming and
sometimes.
it
Yeah.
can't stop.
Yeah.
And my boyfriend will be like, right? Because it's just so much. I'm like, hey, oh, here's one more. Here's one more. And my friend, she would say, let me get a pen. This is going to be good. Because it just keeps coming. And so sometimes life is just that way. And so I kind of have that messy mind
Yeah.
sometimes.
And I think it's just such a superpower. I really do. I think I wanted to apologize for it for a long time because it was disruptive. And, I think as a child, especially as a female child, that kind of disruptive behavior, like thinking out loud and being creative, was not appreciated. It
Oh,
really was.
no. You just
And
be accommodating. Sit there.
right. And
You'd
like
sure
have a
be lots
thought, but don't
prettier
make
if
it
you
too
just,
impactful,
yeah.
you know?
It, if you just smile, if you
Right.
just smile, and
Right.
you'd
And
be
that is not
everything.
something I am good at. I have opinions and I will tell you all of them. And, thankfully I had people in my life who kind of helped me channel some of it in a certain sense. But it paid for my way through college with debate. It changed the direction of my career, knowing that I wanted to go into something with some creative aspects. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, one of my best friends, we travel together a lot, and she has notes on her phone of like what I want when I die and random things. And sometimes we'll look back and we'll be like, I don't know what this is. And I'll be like, I don't either. But she's so good about letting me just, puke
Mm-hmm.
out all the ideas and have those moments of like, well, what if? What if? Now, I'm sure you're in the same boat. 87 of these ideas are nonsensical. It's just thoughts happening so quickly, and they're connected in some way, shape, or form to what was happening around you, or there's something you've seen a year ago that you remembered that you wanted to think about. And it is messy. It is a whole, I never want to see the inside of my brain, in
So
a visual.
I would love to just live up in there. I think I'm a
my
little bit
goodness.
older than you, but I have come to see that part of it is I see the patterns that other people don't see, but
Yes.
I can integrate those ideas. If I'm able to process through it all,
Yes.
then it will all eventually integrate in together, which
Absolutely.
is a different kind of form of creativity. But I will tell you the thing that my AI assistant, I never overwhelm her.
Right?
I'm telling
Right?
you, man, that is really a big thought partner for me more than
Yeah.
anything else. And I will word vomit and just go, and all of it will come out. And then she will
Yes.
just categorize all of that for me
Oh,
and tell me which parts go with which parts that I word vomited before. And she's never, although I will confess, she has told me to take a breath before. Right?
Yeah, we must have the same AI assistant. Although mine is male and his name is Chatwick, and he's amazing. He knows everything about me. And I'm finding out my husband's just a little jealous.
Well,
A little.
mine is
A fun dynamic right now of, those interesting things that are changing in our world so quickly. I mean, if we had had this conversation a year ago, we would have sounded like crazy people. And it's just the dynamics of it. But I definitely hear what you're saying. I have to say it out to get it out. So I very much verbalize what comes into my head, and I will talk to myself. I have a 13-year-old pet pig who sometimes works in my office, and I will definitely ask his opinion. But I think someday in the future, we are going to find out that people who have this kind of dynamic brain system where it is just constant, and it's been looked on as such a negative for so long. And I hear things in my head happening. I had to Google, am I schizophrenic? I have so many voices going on in my head. Is this what schizophrenia is? And it's not. I think there will come a day when someone will figure out that is so much more high level than we give it credit for. I think the ability
I
to see
completely agree
things.
with that. And I
Yeah,
think that the people that can harness it and work
that's the
through
key.
it, utilize it, build their
Yep.
capacity with it. That's what I've been able to do. I'm 59, I'm almost 60, and it's taken a long time to be able to really stand in it and not think of it as a
Yep.
weakness and
Absolutely.
realize how important it is and annoying sometimes. My AI assistant is Nova because she named herself, because that's how many deep conversations I've had with her.
Very nice. Good job, Nova. Wow.
So I want to get into kind of some practical things a little bit. Leaders, lots of them have developed this adaptability, right? We all have certain adaptability to get through difficult situations. But how do we know when we're responding true to the current environment and with present day wisdom, and rather than old survival patterns that kind of got us through? Because when things start being uncertain, then I'll catch myself even going back to kind of, and I can feel it in myself when it happens, because I've done
Absolutely.
work to not be like that. But so a leader that's out there now, how do they, if they're not super in tune to it, but they think that's happening, how do they tell the difference really?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of what I talk about is, perspective. And so I have to make sure that when I'm looking at the team as a whole, that I honor the perspective of everyone on that team. And so I am loud, I'm garish, I'll talk to anyone, I will have big conversations. That's not the case for everyone on our team. And it it really is kind of honoring everyone's different unique personalities in a sense. But I also know what I know. And like I said, I have no imposter syndrome at all. I know what I know, but I also know what I don't know. And I also know where my weaknesses are. And I think that is the most important part of leadership right now, is not pretending, as female leaders had to for years, that we had it all together, right? As a male leader, you could be short here and do these things wrong. And everybody was like, oh, ha ha, he's just he's a man. He doesn't know
Or
what
like
to do
be a
that.
jerk, be short.
Right.
And if I did that, I was a
Yeah,
bitch.
we would.
Why is she being
Oh
so
my gosh.
difficult?
If I had
Right?
$1 for every time I've been called a bitch in my career, I'd be a whole different show. But I think for me, it was knowing that, like, okay, one thing that I should be working on is my emotional IQ, my emotional intelligence, and how it affects and impacts other people. How is my communication style impacting the people around me? And so truthfully, everybody's got a plan, everybody's got a mentor, everybody's got a thing, a system. We've all done traction and EOS and all these things. I did not prioritize any of that. I prioritized, how is our team communicating? We're a fully remote, fully female, all over the country team. How are we communicating? What is our emotional intelligence as it relates to? So instead of hiring a sales consultant and a business development person, we brought somebody in that was like, you're not hearing what she's saying to you.
Right.
You're not reading the room when you say blanket statements, or you say, and it was for everybody. It wasn't just for me as a leader. It was teaching all of us how to accept and acknowledge that we're different, accept and acknowledge that we are going to feel stress and anxiety. But I really, at this point in my life, the priority for me is not to end up, I keep using this phrase, but it makes me laugh every time I say it. I do not need to Scrooge McDuck my way through a pile of gold bullion to be happy. So I would rather have less in the bank and more fulfillment in my role, and know that I'm doing the right thing for the team, know that I'm developing their careers, know that I'm doing that, than focused on, we got to get out there and sell and sell and sell and do more work. I love what I do. I just want to do that. And I want everybody to make a livable wage. We have medical insurance. We have 401k match, because those were a priority for me. With an all-woman staff, we underinvest at a ridiculous rate compared to our men counterparts. So having those tools in place and being a leader that cares more about the team than the bottom line. Now, you can't do that to the point of extinction, right? So there's a balance. But I now feel like everyone feels a sense of ownership to the team, instead of it being my company and let's fill my coffers. I've never understood that. Why am I working to make someone else a gazillionaire? That doesn't make any sense to me. So when we all share in the, in the effort and the work, then we all share in the reward, and really try to make sure that it's equitable in that sense, but also your emotional needs are being met. Are we doing fun things? Are we, we're actually taking a trip as a whole team to Denver. We're meeting there in August. And so planning this little retreat. Of course, we're going to do work. I want to talk about 2027. Where are we going? What are we doing? But, tomorrow we're doing a t-shirt competition. So everybody's getting together. We're having lunch remotely. We send out Uber Eats, gift cards to everybody.
So that's how, team building, right?
Absolutely.
Because there's nothing better than talking about work for a little bit of time on a trip, because it makes it all tax deductible.
Well,
so always plan a little bit. I'm going to go visit this prospective client. I'm going to walk in here and I'm going to cold call this client, because then my whole trip was for this one business person.
Yeah.
Right.
But for me too, it's really, and I really ridiculously, I wish I didn't love marketing as much as I do. I passionately love what I do. I love the creativity of it, but I also love the big picture of it, right? Like solving, you're Nancy Drew in it. They have a problem. The brand isn't resonating, or the conversions aren't happening. Like, let's solve this problem. So I fully could talk about marketing every day, all day to strangers, and they would have to beg me to stop. I really do passionately love it. And I think it was kind of going back to my childhood. One of the escapes back in the day was jingles and, you had to watch regular TV. So we had to watch the
Mm-hmm.
commercials and I would just wait for the commercials. And,
The jingles are the
that was,
best part. I still
well,
have so many of them. I like my
fun.
favorite one that just evokes just this feeling of happiness is that Coca-Cola. I'd like to give the world a Coke. Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
love it. I
On the
love it. I love
hill
it.
with the little candles. It was amazing.
Yes.
It was iconic. Yeah. And I think those
Or the Charlie
things,
Brown theme song when it came on because you only had 3 channels and 24-hour cartoons and videos wasn't a thing. So when you heard that Charlie
you
Brown
knew.
keyboard start, man, that was excitement. And it still it still feels great today. So I totally get that. And I love how we tell those stories to build trust and credibility within ourselves. It all tells a big story, but we do that with our team too. And you are really consciously telling that story and building them up and making sure their experiences within your business and as you leading them are on the positive side.
Absolutely.
That is accumulating trust and confidence with them. And I think that is one of the big lessons that I see in what you do. I've been really exploring all of that recently because I've had a couple of clients that we've ended up in that discussion with them. And so I really like that you did that.
Yeah, I think it's super important to, one, I'm reminded every day, and I'm also grateful because my mind is not built for life saving. And so I say every day, we are not saving lives. Your family, your children, your puppy, your whatever are the priority if there's a crisis. We have unlimited vacation if you needed to, I know it came from a place where my husband's father had a brain tumor and we found it in December and he was gone in March. And my husband had just started a new job. He had no time.
No, he couldn't take
He did
time.
not get to say goodbye.
I've often found that unlimited PTO is a tactic that a large corporation uses to get people not to take PTO or for them not to have to pay for it at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Right. Because you didn't bank any, because you can take it if you want, but you're not banking any ever. And so I like that you actually promote it the right way.
Yeah. It should really allow you to feel like when life happens to you or when you need a mental health afternoon, that it is okay to take a minute. You're going to be better when you come back and feel safe in that break. So no stress. I mean, I never felt this in my career.
Oh, me either. In fact,
sinus infections and, everything.
Yes, and I'm the boss. I'm the boss.
And that is, we are our worst, our own, I advocate for it, but sometimes I forget to do it myself. And I'm very conscious of making sure that one, everybody's using it. And two, that I do as well. And
right, because
for me,
they see
travel.
you.
They do.
You'll hear that and they'll say, oh, wow, no, we value it. And then, then you can feel that you're treated differently when you took it.
Right.
So,
and I get to be a workaholic when it comes to my, I have that ability. It's my right to do that.
Right. And I love what I do.
Ask anyone else to do that.
I mean, if they love what they're doing, they can do it too. I love what I do. I swear I work almost every day, but then I'll take time off, but then I work a lot because I like what I'm doing and my kids are all gone and I get to do it. So
yeah, I'm in the same boat. Empty nest, ready to go, all those things. But it is, I now have learned, and this is something I get thoughts in the middle of the night, or I want to send an email at 2 a.m, or I'm working on a Sunday. I schedule all of those emails now. And I'm so proud of myself because I figured out how to do that. So if they are in their family mode or, kind of building
so they don't get the email at 2 a.m.
Get them. And I'm like, oh my God, what a game changer. Because really, back in the day,
now you're telling the story.
Sent an email, you were expected to respond to that. If it was 2 a.m, it needed to be responded to. Now I've even found a way to protect them from my chaos on the weekend. That. Sometimes they don't always work. And sometimes I follow up right away. Like, please do not answer this. This means nothing. But for the most part, I can figure out how to schedule them now. It's delightful.
Yeah, I'm not
So,
answering anybody at 2 in the morning
no.
unless it's one of my children and there's some kind of major crisis, and then I might sleep through it, I'll be honest.
Honestly, really. Yeah.
I've been working on sleep and I've been doing really good, so
Sleep is my nemesis. We do not get along. I've tried everything. I have a heated sleep mask, so I'm with you. It's
I
very
couldn't do a
hard.
heated sleep mask. That would light up. I would have hot flashes at night if I tried to put
I did
any
have to
heat.
stop using it briefly until I got on estrogen with the
Yes.
fun journey that all the ladies are going to be looking forward
Yes,
to
this is true.
as they turn into
Well, I
mature.
want to ask one final question before we end the episode, and that is for someone listening who still feels defined by a story that they've carried for years. They have. What would you want them to understand about their story?
The only person that gets to define who you are and what you are about, what your journey, what your purpose is here is you. And every time you let someone invalidate or rewrite or change your perspective about your vision for your life, you have given it away for free. You are giving someone access to the most personal, powerful thing that you have. Nothing else in this life matters besides who you are as a person and where you see your journey taking you. I have lost and gained so many friends by the knowledge of just knowing I am the only one whose opinion matters when it comes time for this. Do I love hearing thoughts and feedback from people? Yes. But I will not be put down for my past. I was stigmatized from as a baby. I mean, my adopted mother's mother didn't accept us because we were adopted. And then then you go into the whole, well, now we've been in foster care. Well, now we've been in group homes. Like, can you imagine the stigmas that went around with that?
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm a teen mom. I had the minister's son. When I found out I was pregnant, I had moved back to a really small town in Iowa, yelling horror at me, standing next to his dad on the street. So his minister father condoned, using that kind of phrasing for a woman who was just trying to get through and make a difference in her own life. And so when I think about the barriers, I do not care. I do not care what you think of my journey. I do not care what these people from my past. Now, I want to preface this because one thing I love as an ADHD survivor here is I will hold a grudge and I will prove you wrong for the next 40 years. So I had a principal who told me when I got pregnant that he did not know I could hear this, but he was telling the guidance counselor that I was just going to be a welfare mom piece of shit and never make anything of my life. And I remember such a visceral moment. That moment has never left me. So as much as he doesn't get to define who I am, he's dead. None of this matters anymore.
Right.
But I will prove you wrong. I will prove you wrong.
Well, I think that's a great place to end the conversation. Yes. I'm sure that my listeners would love to learn more about you and Workhorse Marketing. Tell us how we can contact you and find out more about what you do.
I would love to talk marketing, obviously. So the website for the company is teamworkhorse.com. I'm on LinkedIn is my primary social platform right now. I'm leaning into TikTok. Don't go there. It's just pigs and ducks in my backyard at this point. So, but LinkedIn it's just Allie Grack. I think I'm the only one in existence. And so pretty easy to find that way. But Team Workhorse women founded, women run, and we work with good people doing good things. So if you're interested, I would love to share our thoughts with you on marketing.
Fantastic. And I will link to all of Allie's contact info in the show notes. If this conversation resonated with you, if it challenged how you think about leadership, growth, resilience, or the stories we carry about ourselves, then my work lives beyond this podcast in your growth. Thank you. I help business owners and leaders navigate the human side of growth because every business challenge ultimately involves people making decisions, building trust, communicating clearly, and creating environments where people can thrive. If you're looking for a place to start, I've created a free resource called the Human Sales Playbook. It's designed to help you better understand the human dynamics behind trust, communication, decision-making, and growth so you can create stronger connections with your customers, your team, and yourself. You'll find a link to that and my contact information in the show notes. Allie, it has been such a great time connecting with you today. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
You as well. Thanks for having me. It was wonderful.
Until next time, everyone, stand strong in your power, especially when it gets uncomfortable. See you next week.